Welcome to Inspired for More podcast. I am so happy you're here. My name is Alexandra Sauvé, and I embarked on a crazy journey of self-discovery over a decade ago. I have built and I continue to grow my multi-seven-figure sales organization, and I am insanely passionate about stepping into the very best version of ourselves and letting go of stories that no longer serve us. This podcast is long overdue for me to share with those seeking to expand their life to the next level in health, relationship, career, finances, and spirituality. If you feel any bit inspired by anything in this intro or any episodes to come, just know, if you can be inspired, you are actually meant to inspire others. Now let's dive into an episode. Well, hello team. Welcome back to another episode of Inspired for More podcast. And I am so thrilled to be coming on here today and to be talking about the power of believing, because there's one thing that we don't have a tendency of talking about within the work environments, within business environments, and it comes down to that famous variable about belief. And belief is everything that literally, in my opinion, is the reason why people achieve the extraordinary. And many people are often looking for logic onto how to create massive success. And the reality is that when you actually ask people who have achieved extraordinary success, they will always tell you, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew I would. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew I would. And I look at my success journey so far, and of course, I am nowhere where I want to be, but I am absolutely grateful and so thankful for where I am and so excited and passionate about where I'm heading. And I know exactly where I'm heading, and I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm taking a step every single day to get there. And I look at what I've created so far in my sales business and all of these things that I've created for myself so far. And all I can tell you is that the only reason that I may have superior results compared to some other people is because I had the fundamental belief in my organization and what I was going to be creating. I had the fundamental belief that I was going to be expanding beyond my reach to the right people. I believe that the right people, right places, right circumstances were going to be aligned on my path. And so this whole podcast came through in my mind when I went for a run the other day. And every time I go for a run, and if you've never heard of this before, there's actual scientific basis that explains that if you listen to something and you're idle, the chances of it getting in your subconscious brain is actually very little to none. It actually doesn't seep through. And that's why I always often say that, like, the way that we're teaching our kids now is so counterproductive and counter to every success principle that I learn every single day and that I'm so passionate about learning on a day-to-day basis. But most of all, when kids stay idle, we definitely don't learn, even as adults, staying idle and listening to something. So every time I go for a run, I make it a purpose to either be listening to an audiobook, a podcast, at least in the first 30 minutes of my workout as I'm moving my body, because I know that it's scientifically proven that it will get in your subconscious brain. And I know that as a Tony Robbins Inner Circle member and all of these things, he is really adamant about learning and moving your body at the same time so that you actually seep into your subconscious brain. So all of that to say, I was going for a run yesterday or 2 days ago, and I literally found one of my old audiobooks, which is The Power of Believing. It's an old book from 1948. It's like a gem. And I find the older books are always the best because they literally, we think that The Secret was the first thing to come out. And to be honest with you, The Secret is a single little example of what the law of attraction is, but there are so many more success principles, and I'm so passionate about discovering success principles, uncovering them, mastering them, keep on developing them for myself and teaching them and training them to other people. And honestly, every book that I read that is dated from 1930 to 1960, from Neville Goddard and Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill's book, which is Think and Grow Rich, is literally on my bedside for the last 5 years. I study it every single day. And I will tell you, I read it originally like a book that you read, read Think and Grow Rich. And I read it like that. And it was the most boring book ever. And nothing really seeped in me until I heard a speech from Jim Rohn, the great Jim Rohn, which is actually Tony Robbins' old mentor. That was the guy that Tony Robbins worked for when he was 17. And Jim Rohn, by far, unfortunately, he passed away, but he's by far my favorite speaker of all time. And I've always gone back to Jim Rohn's speeches. But Jim Rohn used to say that he was told by one of his mentors, he was 25, he was dead broke, and he met this man that was really well established. And that man told him to read Think and Grow Rich. And so he started to read it. And most of all, he started to study it. So I decided to use that same practice in my life and to study Think and Grow Rich. And Magic of Believing is actually a book that I've re-listened to several times. So, even though we say read books, and I'm big on, if you want to be happy, you study happy people. If you want to be wealthy, study wealthy people. If you want to be healthy, study healthy people, and read all of it. Like 30 minutes a day of just pure knowledge and getting something seep in. Think about how easy it is to just get lost in scrolling or being listening or doing something that actually is bringing you nowhere forward in your life in terms of knowledge. And some stuff was going to be weird. Like, I mean, it's just part of the thing. Like, you're going to read other certain principles that don't apply or don't resonate with you. But when you will find the things that resonate with you, you don't know and you can't quantify the value of it. Like we often say, a book might cost $20, but you can't quantify it by the cost. You have to quantify it by the value that it's bringing to your life. And I know for myself, there's so many elements and so many different books that have brought so much into my world. And one of them is definitely Think and Grow Rich. And the one that I'm talking about today is The Magic of Believing. And The Magic of Believing, when I was listening to it the other day, it's just these simple principles. And it's from 1948. And what he talks about is the fact that we are electric being. And I thought, I was running and I was thinking, oh my gosh, like that is so true. It's like you're electric and you have a dim light. Okay. So you get to decide if you're like full on, full lit up, you walk in the room and you light that stuff up and you bring the world to a different level. Or you could be walking in and your electric is like literally so dim. You're like, oh, I see the light, but I barely see the light. And you get to decide. And that is the most powerful thing about this human experience that we're living. We get to decide how we're going to show up. And the deciding factor on how you're going to show up is actually going to determine what you're attracting into your world. And when you think about, and when all these things that I like study about principles of success, they say get passionate about your goals, but get passionate about being passionate. And I'm like, that is the truest thing about people that we have magnetism towards. And it's funny because people often think that I was always this passionate or this excited, which I've always had a joy of living. And I guess it did come through as intentionally becoming more passionate about my goals, of course, because those are things that lit me up. And right now, if you're not feeling lit up, it's simply an indicator that you're not doing things that are on your path, that are not necessarily destined for you. When you have deep desires, deep desires, which is Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, like fundamental about his whole book about when you study it, like just 1 or 2 phrases a day. If you study that book, he talks about literally how it has to start with a deep desire. And I have the fundamental belief that whatever you desire, it is destined for you. There's a reason why your soul is being called to it. When you desire something, it's because you're being guided to it and it's uncovering little bit by little bit. Like every day when I fall on this random podcast or a random audiobook that was my phone, like The Magic of Believing, like I'm talking about right now, when I listen to that, I know without a doubt that I landed on that day at that time to hear information that my soul needs to hear so that I can deliver and inspire more people through that message. I love that play on words right there. The power of believing. Okay. So, but power of believing is literally when you think about all the great religions in the world. And I mean, I feel like I always preface that because religion there's so many great things about it, but there's so many adverse of things about it in terms of dogma. And that's because man got involved with it. And that's not the spiritual alignment in like guilting people into making them feel bad if they aren't aligned in a certain way. To me, God is love. And the more that you're aligned in that energy of love and high frequency, and that you believe that you're supported by something greater than yourself, the more that you will show up greater than yourself. And I think that's the biggest benefit about having a relationship with your higher creator, because it takes away the element and the pressure off of just being dependent on you. Then when you put that faith and that belief that something bigger than you is supporting you towards your goals, And like you read literally like I read the Bible, I read all of these things and I think to myself, this is so true. They've been talking about this for years and decades and centuries about how your words impact your life. The way you use your words impact your life. And that was one of our previous episodes. But it's just the fact that the fundamental belief in something greater than yourself is actually, whether you're thinking negatively and you have the belief that your life is going to, or that you're going to fall off, you're going to fail, you're actually right. So that is the principle of the power of believing. Whether you think you can, you will. Whether you think you can't, you won't. And that is so crazy to me, to think we have the power, but unfortunately, so often we think about the negative things. And I'll give you, for example, yesterday, I was on a coaching call with someone that was talking about how much they had debt. And they said, I really need to get out of my debt. And I'm working towards out of my debt. I'm working towards out of that. And I said to her, I said, as somebody who came from debt, I will tell you that I never thought about getting out of my debt. I thought about, how can I expand myself to the most largest version of myself? And how much prosperity can I bring? If I was the most prosperous being, how would I be feeling? And I started to plunge into that, because if you keep thinking about debt, you're going to keep attracting debt. And that's the power of belief in that paradigm of debt. You're attracting that. If you believe in the paradigm of prosperity and that the floodgates of abundance are opening for you, well, guess what? Your brain is distorting reality to bring forth all of the right evidence. It's actually called the reticular activating system. And I'm very, very passionate about that, is the fact that it's scientific in terms of the power of believing. When you believe that you're being supported and you're looking for the evidence of it, the evidence is actually showing up. And I look at sometimes like at past experiences of encounters and people that I was meeting, and they would say something like, oh yes, I know so-and-so. And I was like, it's a sign. It's a sign. I'm on the right path. Or like I'd be in my kitchen and you see 11:11 on the clock. It's a sign. I'm being supported. The phone rings at a certain time and you think it's somebody else and you totally think that it's being aligned, and it's like not at all. But your brain is distorting all these images in your life to be aligned on the path to believe that you're actually attracting the right things. And ironically, the more that you believe it, the more that the electricity in your body is like, I love how he described that in The Magic of Believing, that book. He says that the electricity in your body, the frequency actually brings about experiences and images to bring forth the things that you desire the most and that are on the same frequency as you. And so often enough, people will say, I really, really am trying. I'm trying to achieve this goal. I really want this. I really, really desire this. And the unfortunate part is that if they aren't aligned in the person that can handle the responsibilities and the success that comes with that desire, they'll never achieve it. And so what I mean by that is that if you desire to be New York Times bestseller author, and yet you're worried about your income all the time, or you're worried about your expenses, you're not actually on the frequency of an expansive New York Times bestseller. If you're literally wishing to be a massive sales leader and to be earning seven figures a year, and you're worried about one person in your organization or one thing in your business, you're not thinking expansively. You're not thinking in terms of expansion and how big your things are. So that's where you want to bring back your focus is, am I embodying the best version and the future version of myself? Because how you're acting today is literally what you're going to be attracting tomorrow. So if you think to yourself, how do I want to be in the future? How do I want to be showing up? What kind of success do I want to be attracting? How would I be feeling? And if you start showing up like that, that's literally what you're going to be attracting. But if you're always waiting for the outside to be matching, it's like to see it and then start embodying it, it's never going to happen. You have to embody it before you see it. You have to feel it before you see it. And that brings me back to the fact that we have two ways of seeing in life. We have the vision through your eyes, literally tangible success outside. You wish to be a millionaire and you go on your bank account and you go, oh, no, I'm not yet. but you also have the ability to have foresight. And that's what makes us so different in terms of human being and having a soul and having an expansive soul and having imagination, is that if you can foresee and have foresight as to where you are going and what you're creating, and to feel that feeling, which we all have that capability if we really center in on the future version of ourselves and how we want to feel. And if you think to yourself, actually, I do that all the time. I think about the worst scenarios. Like I used to think about the worst scenarios, like falling off a cliff. But yet then when I started to embody the feeling of gratitude of living in a place that I love, around people that I love, having built and continued to build a business that I love with people that I love, my income continuously growing and pouring into me just because I'm showing up and I'm developing my gifts. I get paid just for being myself and like embodying that energy, your whole world will start to transform in that aspect. And so you really have to take time to really project yourself into that future version of yourself. And so when he went, I'm going back to the book about Power of Believing, he talked about the power of imagination. And I've spoke about this so many times, and that's pretty much the preface of everything in this podcast, is that we have to have childlike belief in our dreams and match it with hard work. Of course, hard work is involved and the hustle is part of building a business. And I think that's where people get a major misconception about believing, and then they wait and they see things out. But the reality is that hard work alone will never bring the riches. Hard work alone will never bring the riches, because I've known way too many people that work hard, but they don't have the energy. They don't have the conviction. They don't have that burning desire and that destination and that end date to their desires. And so therefore they don't show up. They never show up in that energy because they don't even know what that energy feels like or that vision feels like. And that's why imagination, when you study all the great leaders in the world that have come before us, or great new thought leaders, that what I mean by new thought leaders is people that literally talked about all this stuff in the 1900s. And that's basically what The Secret was based off. She was bringing all this to forward. And I think that it wasn't explained in its entirety, because the basics of the new thought leaders, with what they explain, is the fact that your subconscious brain is wide open. And you could think about your subconscious brain as your higher self, your soul. The thing that actually controls you is your subconscious. Your conscious and what you think is controlling and what you're making actions is not really controlling you, and your subconscious is. But the reality is that we're normally dead and not thinking about our subconscious too often. But the minute you get awoken to the things that you've been doing, the actions you've been taking, the people you've been surrounding yourself with, all of a sudden, you start to put a stall on that subconscious brain, and you start to be really conscious about programming that subconscious brain so that it can lead you to success. It can excel you to success. It can make you believe and create new beliefs, new patterns, reject the things that you've been conditioned to do. And so one of the things was really imagination, affirmation, imagination, affirmation. And then when he talked about affirmations, it was projecting yourselves, knowing exactly where you're going and embodying it and speaking it out loud. And the third was mirror work. And mirror work is something that I've read about time and time again in Louise Hay's books, in Power of Self-Healing. How many times do we hear about people that literally from the power of believing actually heal their body? Well, the reason why they're able to do that is that they were able to project themselves into feel into the cells actually being healed. And that happens to me. Like whenever I have a cold or anything that comes up, I'm like, I feel into it. And it's all about frequency. Because if you don't believe in it, if you're like, I tried and it didn't work, it's because your frequency is too low. You really got to elevate that energy. And that's why finding joy on your daily basis as you're pursuing the things that you want in your life, they're actually going to transform your whole it's going to shift every aspect of your life towards you actually achieving the goals and the desires that you want. And mirror work is actually something that will absolutely excel your success. Okay. Because looking at yourself, telling yourself, I am, the words that follow I am is what you become. And so looking in the mirror and affirming who you are. I am a business leader. I'm an incredible wife and mom. I make my communities better. I empower people to become the best version of themselves. Whatever your affirmation is, I am a self-made millionaire. Whatever makes you feel into the version of you that you want to be creating, whether it's becoming an author, whether it's becoming an international speaker, whether it's achieving sales goals or attaining trips or any of those things. Put them out there, creating a family for yourself, attracting love into your life, and all of these things. The more that you attract love towards yourself, the more you're going to attract love around yourself, because we attract who we're being, not what we want. And so the more that you embody that later version of yourself, and the more that you have an unwavering faith and an unwavering belief in what you're creating, the more you're going to draw that to you. So I hope that today's message brings you about a little bit of reflection on, first of all, things that you could be doing, which are absolutely pushing your imagination to the next level. Definitely, without a doubt, having some affirmations that you feel into, doing some mirror work and reflect and look and observe, because people around us are our biggest teachers. Look at the people who are happiest around you, study them. Look at the people who are wealthiest around you, study them. Look at the people who are not so happy and let them be also your teacher as to what not to do. Okay. So on that note, I wish you an incredible, incredible day. I bless you with all my heart. And I'm just so grateful to be on this journey with you. Take care. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for pressing play today and joining me for an episode of Inspired for More. If you loved anything about this episode, make sure to take a print screen and tag me on your Instagram stories. Or better yet, copy the link of the episode, share it with a friend, make sure to be subscribed to the channel for latest episode drop-ins. And remember, if you can be inspired, you are actually meant to inspire others. I'm wishing you the most incredible and blessed day, and I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Take care.